Welcome to April's Tech of the Month. In this video, we have a brilliant April Fool's joke, some narrow bars we actually quite like, a bunch of hot new shoes, new clothing from MAAP, our issue with Van Rysel's new bike, and a discussion point which is bound to stir the comments pot. But first, this week, of course, we did have April 1st, and that always comes with a myriad of different April Fool's jokes from the industry. But there was one that stood out to us most as just being, it's the commitment to it more than anything, isn't it?
Definitely the commitment. So yeah, go on, tell us. What do we have?
There is a composites brand that repairs carbon frames up in Cheshire, which is just outside Manchester, which is in the north of England, called Target Composites. And what they created was a Super 6 Evo tandem named the Supertwelveevo.
Brilliant.
But they've done a brilliant job of it.
Yeah,
I think it's amazing.
It's incredible. I think as we said, the commitment on this one. So allegedly this was 3 weeks of labour to put this thing together. Yeah. 2 Super 6 frames, but sort of, well, I say bolted together, adhered together. And yeah, it's just the attention to detail. It's got like a full paint job. It just looks slick, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I love the inclusion. So of course, on a normal Super 6 or a Lab 71 Super 6, you've got the Lab 71 writing. But instead, they've changed that using exactly the same font, style and graphic, but changed it to April 1st. It's so good.
Yeah, as I say, it's the commitment. Investing that much time and, to be honest, money as well. That would not have been cheap to do.
No, absolutely not.
So yeah, props to the team at Target Composites.
Absolutely kudos, because that was sensational. Onto those narrow bars that we actually quite like. Joe, talk to us.
Yeah, so these are from a British company called Avec, and they are the Avec Air handlebar. Now, some stats off the bat. They are 32 centimetres wide at the top, 36 in the drops. They've got 75 millimetres of reach and 110 millimetre drop. They are, of course, as you might be able to see, designed around making the rider fast. So they come from the factory. You can get them with these inserts to make the drops a little bit more comfortable and more aerodynamic, and also pads on the tops. Now, this is essentially so you can sort of lean your forearm and get a little bit comfier. I haven't tested these just yet. One thing off the bat I can notice is I have a feeling that potentially while sprinting with these sort of drop inserts, I could see myself potentially just knocking the wrist slightly. And yeah, we've covered narrow handlebars quite a lot on this channel and we've advocated for them. They're certainly not for everyone from an ergonomic point of view, but they are undeniably faster. And I actually think, so these are 280 quid. At that price, I reckon these could be one of the biggest sort of watts gained per pound investments you could make on your bike. Other things that are nice as well, full external cable routing. On the bottom of the handlebar, there are fairings that cover the cables, but they are totally externally routed, which is really nice. And yeah, I just think they look like a really smart pair of bars. They ergonomically, off the bat, feel very good. So really excited to test these out.
Yeah, the funny thing is when you hold those bars, from my perspective, obviously I'm not the tallest chap, but they don't feel crazy wide.
No, they don't feel over the top. So the WXR bars that we tested previously, the 32s I felt were genuinely usable. The 26s, they were undeniably quick in the wind tunnel, although not as much faster as you would think compared to the 32s. They were a little bit skittish. I got on with them okay. I could definitely see how they might not be to everyone's tastes. Whereas these, off the bat, don't feel that dissimilar to the Envy handlebars I've tested in the past, which I have a lot of friends who have said the ergonomics of that handlebar is fantastic. Why hasn't it been copied? So yeah, really interested to get these out on the road and also potentially keep your eyes peeled in the wind tunnel too. Now then, to some new shoes, which kind of slightly flew under the radar. So Sam, tell us about what is new from Giro.
Yeah, so Giro very quietly just dropped some headline shoes at the back end of last week, and they're nice looking. I've actually got them with me. So they launched 2 pairs of shoes. They launched brand new Imperials, which are these ones with the boas. And then they also replaced and updated the Empires, which are the lace versions. I actually have my original pair of Empires.
I was going to say, such an iconic pair of shoes, really.
Iconic. I feel like these were everywhere. They were such a popular shoe. I think they really helped pioneer the route for white shoes, white socks.
Also, in the British time trial scene, those were the shoes to have, weren't they? Because obviously boa dials, between 2 and 4 watts at 45k an hour. So
very true.
Get rid of them.
But then also lace shoes do tend to be lighter as well.
True.
So there's a bit of weight saving there. And that is also true for the new ones. So between the new Imperial 2s and the Empire SLX 2s, there is a minor weight saving between them of about 20 grams per shoe.
Okay,
which
I mean, that.
if you care about that, then there you go, you can have that. But I was trying these at the weekend, and obviously I've been a big lace wearer for a long time. It's been nice to go back to boas, I will say. Obviously the boa system is kind of unrivaled, works brilliantly well, but these shoes actually have some really nice features about them. Something which I wasn't expecting to be a fan of. The edge of the tongue, all right? Now, what they've added is this kind of silicone edge. But what it means is, due to the shape of it and the way that they've kind of sculpted it, is that when your foot is properly locked in, 0 pressure points on that kind of leading edge of your ankle, and instead it kind of stretches and sits perfectly around your ankle, meaning it's super, super comfy. And then around the rest of the edge, you've just got well-cushioned, well-shaped heel cup. And I think for me, that was like a real standout thing. Ultimately, you want your shoes to be comfortable. These ones are also highly ventilated because the sides of the shoe literally just meshed. You can see through the shoes.
So it's a good job it was 20 degrees in the UK at the weekend.
Well, exactly.
By the way,
fantastic news. The sun's actually back out again. But otherwise, I mean, from initial rides and testing, I really like them. Obviously, really stiff carbon soles, replaceable heel cup, toe bash guard, just a nice pair of shoes. And you can get them in white, black and white, which is good. And then it's a similar story for the Empire SLXs. So if you do really like lace up shoes, then you can go for those. And the Empires are slightly cheaper than the Imperials.
I was going to say, price-wise, how are we looking?
So let me get some exact numbers for you. For the Imperials, you're at $424 US. And for the Empires, you're at $375.
That's definitely up there, isn't it? But I would say, actually, it's not, which feels insane to say, and something we might talk about a little bit later on, actually still relatively competitive in the way of when it comes to top-line shoes, which is insane,
for top-end shoes, yeah. And I mean, to be honest, the longevity of my old Empires, I was running those for years. So I think that your shoes ultimately aren't something you replace all the time.
This is true.
You'd hope you wouldn't. So, I mean, I got a lot of life out of those ones, and I would expect to get a similar amount of life out of any new Giro products, but obviously that remains to be seen. But I think let's move on to it. You've already referenced it.
Yeah.
Expensive shoes. I mean, Specialized.
Yes.
They are pushing the envelope with what is acceptable.
Well, do you know what the scary thing is? They're not the most expensive on the market. But yeah, so go on, tell us about these quickly.
Well, okay, yeah. So the new Specialized Aries 2 shoes in the UK, £479, $600 US, or 549 euros. My soul kind of just died a little bit when I got the press release for this.
For a little bit of reference, we both got this email, obviously on the mailing list. About 15 minutes after the email came in, I got a message from Sam saying, "Oh God, look at this."
Yeah.
And it read, Sam.
It read. So there was one particular quote that stood out to me in said press release, and that was, "The S-Works Aries 2 provides maximum connection between the rider and the bike. There's no lag. If you sneeze, that power and movement will go straight to the pedals." And that was said by Rob Cook, the design director of footwear at Specialized.
Yeah.
And
it's a bit much, isn't it?
It's a bit much. It's a huge sigh, and it kind of led me on to thinking, now look, I do not doubt, I bet you they are a fantastic pair of shoes. And I'm sure they do perform brilliantly.
Yeah.
But it's this kind of language, and it's the claims in a 7 watts power increase, reduces forefoot pressure by 44%. I'm sure Specialized could justify those numbers and how they've been able to reach them. But ultimately, we have been through this cycle for so long now that ultimately the marketing claims, they've just lost all sense of credibility, meaning.
Yeah, there's certainly an essence here, isn't there, that actually these claims are just getting devalued every time we hear like very similar numbers from brands across the spectrum. And yes, while like there's no doubt that these products are getting better, but I think it just sows the seed of doubt when you see it across the industry. Does this all matter? And this is a question as well for you lot at home. What do you really think when you're buying a new pair of shoes? do you go through this, or is the purchasing decision still made on aesthetics? Is it still made on what deal you can get in a lot of cases, which I think is a big one, particularly when the cost is so high. But yeah, it's an interesting point, and one that I'm not really sure there's an answer to be quite frank. You saw something on Instagram as well about someone that had a really interesting take on this.
Yeah, and I've forgotten the name of the chap who said it, but it was kind of alluding to this point of whatever happened to just buying things because we think they look cool and they look nice.
Yeah. What looks nice, but also not to mention the fact with shoes in particular, what's comfy for your foot. Everyone's feet are different, and like that's another one actually with shoes in particular. The amount of press releases I've seen from shoe brands in the last year that are claiming to fit more feet with their shoes. I still think there's an element of Cinderella.
Yeah, exactly.
When it comes to shoes anyway, isn't there? So yeah, no, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, look, let us know your thoughts down below. When you're buying a pair of shoes, what ultimately do you really care about? So Joe, new kit day, clearly.
New kit day.
From MAAP. Talk to us. What's going on?
Yes, so MAAP has launched the Aeon collection. Now, this is an endurance-focused set of kit. So we've got the lovely jersey here, which we were just saying off camera, it's almost like it's a little bit old school, isn't it?
Yeah.
In its sort of fabric type, but super, super comfy. I have tried both these on. Nice, healthy sized pockets at the rear as well, including a zippy pocket on the side. So yeah, and also love the colour on this one. So we've got that. Retail is steep, 170 quid, which that's designer, isn't it? That is designer money. And on the jersey as well, it's Polartec Delta fabric. So yeah, 3D knit structure and seamless hem and low profile collar as well for maximum comfort.
Yeah.
Really looking to see how those perform out in the slightly warmer weather, which I mentioned, because we can actually test that stuff now, which is brilliant. In terms of the shorts, also steep on price, £240. Which is not cheap. Features MAAP's new chamois. Also, feature I really like about these shorts is that the leg panel is just all one material with the gripper sort of in the end, which improves comfort. Also, on the topic of endurance focus, we do have 2 pockets in the bib shorts as well. Now, so far, they seem like they've got quite a small opening, but the pocket itself is really healthy. I think particularly for those riding more like gravel or ultra events or just long rides, to be honest, these would be really nice. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you can actually easily fit in here and how easily you can get them out. But like stuff like gels with like longer, thinner things are gonna be absolutely fine. So yeah, really interested in testing both of those. But again, not cheap, is it?
Yeah,
it's not cheap.
I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. Like MAAP is
it's a premium brand.
It's a premium brand, and I mean, sadly, premium kit is a lot of money. But it looks like what MAAP has made here looks like a really a nice offering, and it's it's a nice continuation of good product. Because I mean, we've always been historic fans of the brands. Like they
make really, really good kit.
So it's just really good kit. So I'd be keen to hear your thoughts and opinions once you've spent more time testing this stuff.
There will be, of course, full review of both these products going up on the site in due course. Now then, usually in this studio, we have a brand new flashy race bike behind us. But some of you may have noticed that today we've got something a little bit older. Now that is really the main reason behind our talking point today. So Sam, what can you tell us about the bike behind us and what that sparked you to think about?
Yeah, absolutely. So this, if you don't know, is a 2009 Scott Addict. It's essentially one of the original ones that they created. This isn't exactly a stock build. It's actually owned by one of the guys who works at Scott. This is a hill climb bike now. And actually, I think when it's in hill climb mode, it's even lighter than what it is now. Because at the moment, that weighs about 5.5 kilos. It's stupidly light.
Yeah, that's tank spec for a hill climb bike.
Well, exactly. But I was shooting another video recently, which will be landing on the channel fairly soon. And because I was riding this bike, along with a modern race bike, it just got me thinking, because I was going back to back between the two for the whole day. So I just got a really good feeling of what it's like to essentially jump back 20 years and then jump forwards 20 years and really get a good understanding of how those two bikes differ. And it just got me thinking, and it's a question I want to kind of pose to you, Joe.
Yep.
Do you think that bikes have become too easy to ride?
So, in short, no, I really don't think they have. However, they have massively changed. And it's something that we've spoken about independently from this conversation about how it actually makes our job as bike testers quite tricky. Because I would say modern day bikes definitely tend slightly closer towards each other. There's less divergence in the sort of spread of how they ride. I think older bikes used to be really quite individual in their ride characteristics, whereas now I think I ride a lot more bikes that feel more similar today than you would do maybe 5 years ago, which is really interesting. In terms of whether they're easier to ride or not, I think they are. Wider tyres make things comfier. They give us more grip. Could argue, although I think it's a pretty feeble argument, that the wider tyres and a slightly less direct feeling with the road could maybe mute the feeling of a particular frame set. Personally, I think you really can still tell the difference, particularly when you back-to-back bikes. So I think in terms of have they got easier to ride? Yes. Is that a bad thing? I don't think it is. But yeah, what do you think, Sam?
Yeah, well, I think they have become easier to ride. I could instantly feel that when I moved on to the modern race bike, it was a case of I had this ability, I could slam on the brakes. I didn't really have to think about shifting or when to shift. And that's the thing with shifting, is that you don't have to be too careful on the new bikes, because ultimately everything is very versatile and very strong. Whereas with older bikes, you know, you really had to time your shift. Where in the pedal stroke were you going to shift? Making sure that your power was just right. I feel like back in the day, like you really had to anticipate what was coming, because if you were going down a descent, you would really need to work out, okay, like how long do I need to brake for before I hit that corner, and what speed do I want to enter? But then even with gearing, because you know, gears weren't as forgiving. Again, it was just this whole anticipation thing, which ultimately I think makes you a more skilled rider, because you have to think about what you're doing more.
I do know what you mean. And actually, I'll reference, so I used to race a lot. And in my time racing, I really was on the cusp of when the sort of change happened from mechanical to electronic gears. And I've traditionally been someone that's, in a race scenario, incredibly brutal on a drivetrain. Like I'll rev my legs out, like a car would rev through a rev range, and just change gear when I needed to, completely disregarding how often I'd have to change my cassette, just banging through the gears. And you can do that on Di2 or SRAM Red Access. With mechanical shifting, there was, I agree, a level of finesse, particularly if the gears might not always be absolutely perfect, or if you've had a wheel change, for example, and you have to maybe finesse gear changes a little bit more. And with rim brakes as well, certainly more involved, I would say. I personally think that I can get so much more out of a modern day race bike that I still think they are as engaging. And also, some of my favorite handling bikes of all time are modern race bikes, right?
Yeah.
That said, my personal bike at home is from 1992. I still use that Steel Massey, and I love the way that rides. I think it's brilliant, but they're very different, very different.
Exactly. And I think this is it. I think for those getting into the sport, bikes are now easier to ride. That's a good thing. No one's arguing with that.
100%.
But I think what that then comes with is that bikes at the top end, so people that have been around the sport for a while and maybe are racing or are professional, they are more capable. So what you're able to extract out of a bike is so much more than what you would have been able to do in 2009, hence why overall race speeds are increasing.
Yeah. On race speeds, though, I must say, I think that's also massively dependent on how races are being raced as well.
Correct. And also, I think you can also talk about, this new generation of athletes, which really put carb intake right at the forefront of what they do. So it's one variable in a whole mixing pot of different reasons.
But I agree. They're faster. I think that's better. I think they're more fun. The only other thing I will say, though, is, as bike testers, it really means we have to look for the nuances a lot more, I would say. As I say, there's more scope for two bikes feeling more similar. And with variables like wider tyres and stuff like that, you do really have to tune in to what different race bikes today offer. I think there is also somewhat of a convergence in geometries when we're now really finding out what works. Compare the geometry charts of lots of different race bikes. There's important metrics that are often quite similar, but there's still enough differences that I really believe you genuinely can feel the difference. So I wouldn't argue that it's not modern race bikes have no character. Definitely not saying that. But they certainly feel different. And I think I can definitely see or empathize with traditionalists thinking, actually, that as you did with this bike, get on an old race bike like this and just absolutely love the way it rides.
Yeah. I mean, that was it. I was falling in love with that bike, but just because it was so full of character and charm and
bit nostalgia.
It was nice to kind of like hark back to, you know, the bikes of old.
When you're fitter, faster, younger.
Exactly, more attractive, everything. So let us know down below. What do you think? Do you think some bikes have become too easy, or perhaps they've just gotten better? Now, a quick interlude to tell you about this video's sponsor, the Insurance Emporium. If you're considering getting your bike insured, or perhaps want to explore another provider, then be sure to check out the Insurance Emporium. They have a de facto 5-star rating, a Trustpilot score of excellent, and a FIFO Platinum trusted service. You can cover up to 6 bikes on one policy, all of which can be protected from things like theft, loss, or accidental damage. Having anything bad happen to your pride and joy is always painful, but with an insurance policy, you can at least mitigate some of that heartache by knowing that someone has your back. If you'd like to check them out for yourself, then there is a link down below, and there's also details of a discount available on their website. Now, last week, Van Rysel launched a new bike. It has been around for a while.
I was going to say finally.
Finally, exactly. Because, I mean, it's won stages already.
Oh yeah, it's been around, I think, I mean, to be honest, it's coming up for a year since it was first seen, so needs to be launched. But yes, they finally launched the RCR-F. Now, this is the aero bike that Decathlon AG2 Island Mondial have been riding for like literally nearly a year. I think, was it the Criterium de Dauphiné last year?
Yeah, I believe
it was around that time anyway. So it's been out there for a long time. But finally, we have all the details on it. So, shock horror, it's faster, it's more aerodynamic, it's stiffer, but how much by? So, at 45 kilometers an hour, they're saying that it is 13.6 watts faster than the RCR Pro, which is the standard road bike. That is bike only. At 55 kilometers an hour, that goes up to 20.1 watts. So, not insignificant. In terms of aesthetics, we were just saying it kind of just looks like an RCR Pro that's put on a bit of timber, really, doesn't it? There's some really similar design language in the seat stays. Up front, it's a lot deeper. The front end, I think, is 7% stiffer as well claimed, which is quite notable. 32mm tyre clearance, and also a brand new, or again, not brand new, but the new cockpit has been totally optimized specifically for the type of rider and the race scenarios that they want this bike to be used on. So they're very open that this 7.5 kilo bike is not optimized for climbs over 5%. That is where the RCR Pro takes over. So for the Pro team, they've got use of 2 bikes, happy days. They can make that decision based on the stage or based on the race. But what that's allowed them to do is really engineer this handlebar and stem to be faster and more comfortable, particularly in the drops and on the hoods as well. So actually, similar to the Avec bar, it's got sort of like slightly extruded drops to make things a little bit more comfortable for the sprinters. I think overall it looks really interesting, but I do have one gripe though with this new bike, and that's cost.
Yeah.
So this is the first bike that Van Rysel has ever made, which retails for 5 figures.
Yeah.
Now, in the UK, it's going to retail at £10,000 for the top spec versions, $11,999 or €9,499. On the face of things, if you compare that to an SLA, if you compare that to a Dogma F, you know, good £1,000 or more cheaper. However, it's not value anymore.
No.
It's actually, it's like £800 more expensive than a Canyon Air Road, a bike which I tested last year and is absolutely fantastic. So I think it's going to be really interesting to get into review. I just wonder, have they gone a little bit too early towards that real premium end of the spectrum? Really interested to see how it rides. Obviously, in the World Tour, it's performed very well already. It's won races. But yeah, we are getting that in soon as well, and looking forward to racing it.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think what's also quite interesting that we got from the press information was that this bike is also now going to be sold in the UK with an exclusive retail deal with Sigma Sports, which, if you are overseas, is a premium bike shop within the UK. It's just in southwest London. And I think exclusive retail deal is maybe a slightly misleading, because the bike is still going to be sold at Decathlon.
Yeah, which, by the way, it would be crazy if it wasn't. It would seem really crazy. So,
but I mean, it really does show that the brand is trying to distance itself from Decathlon and tap into that higher end market.
Definitely.
Where, 10 grand price points are the norm.
Feels more normal, yeah. And another interesting point as well, just on the design of the bike, I've had a look at the geometry chart, and this bike is seriously aggressive. Compared to the same size Tarmac SL8, it's 8 millimeters longer and 9 millimeters lower, or 25 millimeters lower at the front end in terms of stack height than the Canyon Aeroad CFR, which is a lot.
Yeah.
25 mm spaces is not insignificant, is it? So very low, very aggressive, clearly designed with the pros in mind. But yeah, I just wonder whether that makes it almost a little bit too specialist to be mainstream, especially with that 10 grand price tag as well. It all seems pretty steep to me, but again, we haven't tested the bike yet. It might be absolutely jaw-dropping, so we'll have to see.
I completely agree. So everyone, let us know down below, what do you think of the brand new Van Rysel RCR-F?